Hey guys, Max Tornado here again. I wanted to record a video that talked a little bit about um, the meaning whenever we toss around the term fusion. I actually was talking to some folks in the stream the other day, and they were just asking, what is a fusion? What does that mean? So I just kind of wanted to cover some of the details related to fusions, and also talk about how often they happen and when new players should start to aim for completing fusions, things like that. So first of all, there are three different types of fusions, right? We have what's called a traditional fusion, which I can go ahead and show you by going into the shard summoning section and then going over here to fusion. And this is like a traditional fusion, right? So it takes four champions to eventually create this one. So we fuse these four champions together, and you have to have them at 4-star ascension, level 40, and then they will create a relic keeper, right? And you can see here to fuse this champion, you have to have these four champions, right? Broadmaw, very similar. Broadmaw is a great champion to fuse for a lot of new players because you get the Lizard Man resurrection. Uh, so same thing, right? You can obtain these champions through void shards. These two especially are also in the bazaar. Um, and then you can fuse these uncommons together to create these two, and then eventually you'll get this one. There is a little bit of a silver cost whenever you're fusing champions, but it's not too terrible. So as an example, whenever we go to a fragment summon, this is kind of where the difference comes in, right? So you have the traditional fusion where you are obtaining champions and then you are um, leveling them up, and then eventually you're combining them together to then fuse, um, say, a bunch of epics, maybe four epics, and then four epics into a legendary, right? So that would be kind of considered a traditional fusion. Then we have what's considered a fragment fusion or a fragment summon event. So fragment summons are where there's essentially fragments of the champion that are going to be given out during events and tournaments. And as a player, we have to kind of do these events and tournaments to acquire those fragments. Once you have enough fragments, 100 fragments, you can then summon that champion, right? So as an example, we have Mithrala here. She is from Hydra, but you can see after I have 100 fragments, I'll be able to summon her, right? Um, for some champions, they come out, and then you don't ever see them again. So as an example, Iron Brago, right? That was a fusion or a fragment summon event that I didn't complete, and it's very unlikely that they'll ever release these fragments for me to acquire again. Same thing with several of these, right? So it's kind of one of those things where you identify what champions you really want to gun for, and then you go after those. Um, and then there are some champions like Dark Gale where you can get them kind of over time through Doom Tower or Yakarl. You can get through the clan shop. Um, so yeah, there's lots of different ways to get different fragments for different champions, but that kind of explains the fragments. Typically, the fusion events and the fragment events will go on for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Um, so that means that you have that period of time to acquire all the champions you need, level them up, and then fuse them together to create your legendary. Or it means that you have enough, you have that time frame to gather all those fragments, and then you can summon your champion, right? The third and kind of final type of fusion is what's considered a fragment fusion combination, right? And these are typically seen as the most difficult of the different fusions and fragment summoning. So it combines the two. So you essentially would have um, four epic champions that you have to do events and tournaments for to get the fragments. You'd have to get 100 fragments for those champions. And then you'd have to level those up and ascend them and then fuse them into the legendary champion. Um, the reason they're kind of considered the most difficult is because there's typically a lot more resources involved. There's almost no kind of second chances, right? With a lot of these events and tournaments, you might be able to kind of say, you know what, I'm going to skip 5 fragments here and get 10 fragments here. instead, and that works out, right? They give you kind of those options. But for that third, more difficult one, a lot of times there's just you either get it here or you don't. You don't get it at all. Um, yeah, that's just a little bit about fusions. Like I said, typically Raid likes to do about once a month. They'll release a new fusion champion or a new fragment champion. And for new players, I would say around 3 to 4 months is typically whenever new players start kind of aiming to complete those fusions. Um, they do require a lot of resources, right? So you kind of have to be intentional about saving your resources for those events, or else you might miss out on them. And um, yeah, yeah. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'm happy to answer them. Um, and uh, and also keep in mind, every major kind of holiday, so like Christmas or Halloween, a lot of different holidays will have different themed fusion champions. Um, so, so yeah, you can kind of keep an eye out for those. And also keep an eye out for content creators because a lot of times, whenever they do release the information for the champions, um, we'll try our best to kind of say like, "Hey, this champion's definitely worth dumping all your resources into." Um, so yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I appreciate you stopping by to watch this video. And if you don't mind liking the video or subscribing, that would be really helpful. Um, and you can also visit me on twitch.tv/maxtornado, and I'm always happy to try to help with your account. Um, and very soon we'll be doing an account giveaway for those who are subscribed to the channel. So yeah, I look forward to talking to y'all more. Have a wonderful day.